There's a storm across the valley. The clouds are rolling in. The afternoon is heavy on your shoulders. There's a truck out on the 4-lane, a mile or more away. The whining of his wheels just makes it colder.
Welcome to Community Forum. Today is February 13th, 2025. I'm Priscilla Almquist-Olsen, or I should say Almquist-Olsen på svenska, in Swedish, because today I'm interviewing a expat who originally went to Oliverhamns High School, grew up here in Easton, and has been for quite a number of years in Sweden. And I want to welcome Joseph Davis to Community Forum, and hopefully we will have I know we'll have a very engaging conversation. Okay, Joseph, welcome.
Thank you very much.
So you have had a most wonderful 2024. Lots of things have happened. You've been in Nairobi, in Paris, Uganda, in Swedish schools, and let's talk a little bit about the Adventures in Thousand World, because that's the first book, fantasy book, that you wrote in Swedish for Swedish children, 9 to 12, I believe. And you've had the 4th edition that came out last year, and that was the last edition. Tell us a little bit about that book.
Yeah, so Adventures in Thousand World is a Swedish fantasy series. It's about a young Swedish girl named Julia, her brother Edvin, and a refugee boy named Kasir, and their adventures in a place called Thousand World, where creativity works like a magical power. So the series consists of 4 main books, and as you said, the 4th one came out last year. But then there's also 2 anthologies that I get to write along with young readers. There were some contests, and the winners got their poems and illustrations published in these anthologies, along with my prologue and epilogue to the series. So that 4th book is sort of the last book in the series, and sort of not, since there's also an epilogue.
Yes, okay. And that you had, I believe you had student contests, and that's how you found the poems?
Well, yes. So one of the things that I do as an author is that I travel around visiting schools and teaching creative writing, and I have contact with a lot of schools because this series, Adventures in Thousand World, the Swedish version, is a popular resource that's used in grade 5 and 6. So teachers will often read it with their students and then discuss it. There's a discussion guide on my website for teachers to use. And a lot of these students participated in a competition where they were tasked with creating illustrations or writing poems, kind of expressing something in this series, or maybe building on the series, creating their own little corner of Thousand World. And I get to read these poems and look at these illustrations and choose 40 winners, I believe, who got their works published in the book along with my epilogue.
Wow, that's great. And I understand that you have over 2,000 hits on your website by teachers who are downloading a teacher's guide to 1,000 Worlds.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the statistics are like when it comes to visits on the website, but one thing that I see is how many times the discussion guide has been downloaded, which is over 2,000 times, as you said. Teachers also tend to write to me to order books, to order PDF copies of the books to show on the projector at school, and to order class sets. I think I worked out once that Adventures in Thousand World is probably being used in about 5% of Swedish middle schools.
Well, and that 5% is growing every year, isn't it?
I think so, because like when a school orders a class set, and they have like maybe 20, 30, one school even ordered, I think, like 170 copies of the book there at the school. And when they have a resource like that, and when they've used it once and found that it worked well, I mean, well, why reinvent the wheel, right? So then they tend to use them again and again. So one teacher wrote to me and said that their school now has a tradition of reading the first book in Adventures in Thousand World, The Darkened Star, every year in 6th grade. And I believe that that there are a lot of what should I call them, repeat users among the teachers of Sweden.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have quite a fan club also of young readers who regularly write to you. And what are they saying?
Yeah, so I in these past couple of weeks, I get to open a number of pieces of fan mail from students who had read my book, well, the first book in the series, that is The Darkened Star, in school. And some of them, they sent me their reviews, what they thought of the book. Some of them sent me questions, which I then answered. Some of them, at least one of them, sent me this nice little greeting card with some drawings that she'd made. There are actually a number of drawings, but that's a common thing actually. When I do school visits as well, students will often make little drawings for me and give them to me after the lesson.
Yes, and so you are in the Swedish public schools, and how do you get referred to those schools?
It's really a number of different ways. So toward the beginning, it was mainly that it was a little bit word of mouth that someone had heard that I was an author and asked, hey, do you want to come to my school? But then once I got started, then I started writing to schools to ask, hey, would you be interested in having me come visit? And later, as the book grew in popularity and I could see schools that had ordered class sets, I would write to them. So yeah, that's how I got in touch with the Swedish school in Paris, so that they were using the book in their school. And so I wrote to them and asked, hey, would you like a visit from the author? But then also teachers who have been a part of my writing workshops often request me or recommend me to other teachers. So sometimes I'll get emails from teachers whose classes I've visited in past years or who have heard of me, yeah, asking if I could come do an author visit. And however it comes about, it's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, I see that you really enjoy it because you're communicating your special gift and passing it on, and I'm sure that you're finding very talented young writers.
Yeah. So when I visit a classroom, like often there will be some students in the class who already love writing, and that's especially fun because some of them will want to talk to me afterwards about the things they're writing. Some of them will even ask me to read their stuff and give them feedback. But I also enjoy meeting the students who don't enjoy writing and the students who believe that they're not creative at all. so that I can prove them wrong. uh, which is the goal of my kind of main author visit writing workshop that I do, is I convince the students that they are creative and that they are authors. And I do that through a combination of writing exercises, physical comedy, um, all kinds of crazy stuff. Sometimes I jump up on their desks. I actually broke a desk that way once. I usually don't break the desks, but it did happen once,
Well,
unfortunately.
it's interesting you should mention that because I have seen photos of you on top of that desk, and I think that really wakes up students, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, which is my goal with that particular move. So I have a couple of sort of standard moves that I do in my writing workshop. And one of them is that as I'm presenting my final 3 points, if I can find a student who's zoned out a little bit, one who's a bit disengaged, then I make sure to engage that student by sort of quietly walking over to their desk. And then as I deliver my last point, I jump from the floor and land on the top of their desk and deliver my final point from the top of their desk, which usually goes very well. But there's this one school in Norrköping where I broke. It was actually a table, not a desk. So there are these two sixth grade girls sitting at this table together, and normally I would jump up like onto the edge of a desk, and I would jump at like exactly the right height so I don't like come crashing down on it. And the edge is usually where it's strongest because that's where the leg is located. But one of these two girls had placed a pencil sharpener right in the spot that I wanted to land. So I had to improvise a bit, and I jumped over the pencil sharpener and came crashing down in the middle of the table and broke it in half.
Oh my goodness.
Uh, Needless to say, those two girls were not zoned out after that. Um, but the headmistress of the school was very nice about it and said that I didn't have to pay for the table or anything. And one of the boys in the class, he came up to me afterwards and said, "I really appreciate how you broke that table. And I was wondering if you could come back to our school every Friday and break one table each time. Because once you run them out of tables, then I'm free. Then they can't keep me here anymore."
Okay, so you must be very athletic in order to jump up, literally jump up on top of a table. I mean, that's amazing. And now you got an award, I believe, for Ventures in Thousand Worlds, and as the all-time highest-rated Swedish fantasy series for ages 9 to 12. And
Yes.
can you tell me how that came about, that award?
Yeah. So it actually started as I was looking at all the positive reviews that the book had gotten, or the first book in the series, and then the following books in the series. And I thought to myself, this is unusually high, like the average ratings that I'm seeing all over the place on Goodreads, on the Swedish bookseller sites. And so I did some digging to actually look at various Swedish fantasy series and realized this is unusually high. And then I realized what I was doing and how dangerous it was. This is too much power for one author to have, because suddenly I had a list with every Swedish fantasy series that had ever been written and its average rating across all platforms. And so what I did then was I asked for help. I went out on social media and asked the Swedish book blogging community, could you please take charge of this list, and you can vote on what you want to happen with this list. And so it was about 20 book bloggers who looked at these statistics, and they voted, and they decided that they wanted to create this award and divide it into 4 categories by age. And they also decided on how the statistics should be interpreted. So, like, of course, if you have a book that that's got like a perfect 5 out of 5 in reviews, but it only has 1 review, that's not as significant as a book that maybe has a 4-star average, but has 1,000 reviews. So they voted to apply the same mathematics that IMDb uses to create its top 10 lists of movies, to kind of like work out how much is X number of ratings worth. And then once all the mathematics have been done with that, then it turned out that my series was the highest rated for ages 9 to 12, and they voted to give out gold, silver, and bronze medals. And so I was awarded a gold medal, or my series was, rather, not me.
My goodness, what an honor. And you must have felt really proud of yourself. And you have, how many years now have you been in Sweden?
I've been in Sweden since, maybe too long, since 2010.
2010. So that's 15 years.
Oh my. Oh, please don't say it like that.
Yeah,
Yes,
but
yes.
no,
Now that you've mentioned it, yeah,
and
15 years.
tell us a little bit how you came. You know, you grew up in Easton. Your mother is still living here. She's a wonderful artist, Jan Davis.
My grandmother. Yeah.
Oh, your grandmother is too?
No, Jan Davis, my grandmother, the artist.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's not your mother. That's your grandmother. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but,
Jan, right.
she's very youthful.
Yes,
and
she is.
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I love her work. Her art, she's a wonderful artist.
Me too.
And she's contributed so much to this community. And so did your grandfather, Skip Davis.
Yeah,
And I bet you miss him. Now,
I do.
yeah. So tell us a little bit. How did you come to Sweden originally? What was the mission, literally?
Yeah. Yeah, so I came to Sweden back in, 2010 was when I officially moved to Sweden after an initial internship in 2008. I was sent by the Evangelical Covenant Church to work as a youth leader at an English-speaking church in Gothenburg. And then after that, I moved on to Arvika up in the beautiful province of Värmland, mostly forest and lakes and hills. It's a very beautiful place. And there I worked as a youth leader in a Swedish-speaking church for a number of years. And then after that, I became an author, a translator, teacher, writing coach. So these days I'm working with my books about 20 hours a week, and working at a local school about 20 hours a week.
I see. So you're still writing, I assume?
Yes. In fact, that's what I'm doing here today. So I'm actually at the local library in Mölndal here, and I came here because it's an inspiring environment to write. So I'm working on some new projects.
I see. Now, one of your latest is Edgar and the Dragon, and that
Yes.
was a book that you wrote in English and subsequently was translated into Swedish. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So Edgar and the Dragon is kind of a funny story in more ways than one. I mean, it's a humorous fantasy book, but it's a funny story how it came to be and how it came to succeed in spite of my best efforts. So I initially wrote it for 2 children who I knew as my host family's children, and I read it to have some breakfast table reading for them, because they didn't like it when I would leave in the morning to go to work. They would hold on to my legs and tell me that I had to stay at home and play. So then, having read The 1001 Arabian Nights and having been inspired by Scheherazade, who told this endless story with a bunch of cliffhangers to keep the king from cutting off her head because he needed to hear what would happen next, I wrote this humorous fantasy story where most of the chapters end on a cliffhanger. And I would read this to them a chapter at a time at the breakfast table, and then they'd ask me when we get to the cliffhanger, well, what happens next? Read us the next page. And I'd say, sorry, there is no next page. If you want to hear what happens next, then you have to let me go to work so I can finish my work, so I can write you the next chapter and read it to you in the morning. And so then they started pushing me out the door, so I couldn't eat breakfast anymore. So that's how it was written. And then I didn't really intend to get it published, but the children's mother, she sent my Microsoft Word documents with the story to some friends in South Africa, and they read it to their kids, and the kids loved it and made their own illustrations. And then the father of the children I'd written the story for, he told me that I had to make it available on Kindle so that other families could download it and read it to their kids. So then I did, against my better judgment. I self-published it on Kindle, and then more and more families sort of discovered it and read it aloud to their children, and it got some very positive reviews. And then years later, after I became established as a Swedish author, one of my publishers discovered Edgar and the Dragon and kind of nagged me until I agreed to let her publish the Swedish translation. So finally, I did that, and now there's a Swedish version as well.
Now, how can our listeners, how can they find your books and purchase them?
Yeah. So, I mean, most of my books are in Swedish. I'm one of my current, I don't know if I would call it a plan or a dream or a point of guilty conscience, something that I haven't had much time to work on, is trying to get more of my books published in English so that friends and family and new readers in America and around the world can read them. So there's not a lot yet, but there are some things that one can read in English. And one of those is the British edition of The Darkened Star, which is the first book in Adventures in Thousand Worlds. You can order that on Amazon. You can also get Edgar and the Dragon on Amazon. And I recently translated my prologue to Adventures in Thousand Worlds into English as a thank you to my small but dedicated group of English readers who've signed up for my English emails and who've been encouraging me and supporting me in trying to get my books into English. And so I think the best place to go if you want to find all of these books in English would be my website, thousandworld.com. So thousandworld.com, not thousand worlds, but thousandworld.com. Mm-hmm. And there one can click on English books to get away from all the Swedish gobbledygook of the website. Or one can click on Story of the Week as well. If one would like to sign up for my English newsletter to get updates when new English books get published, one can click on Story of the Week. And I haven't been writing a lot of emails lately. I was more active last summer, like writing new English stories, letting people order stories for their children about specific topics and then writing it, which was a lot of fun. Actually, that was so much fun. So I may do something like that again this coming summer. But yeah, I'd encourage anyone who's interested in my writing to sign up for my email newsletter, which one can do by going to thousandworld.com and clicking on Story of the Week.
Okay, that's wonderful. Um, and so we can also see information about the books in English uh, provided by Amazon, correct?
Yeah, one can, but Amazon is not always my best friend. So working with Amazon is not always the easiest. Sometimes I find that random bits of information about my books have been altered, and I have no way to get them to change it back. And then I contact the publisher and try to get them to get Amazon to change it back. So there was an issue some time ago where like somehow the English book had gotten the Swedish book's description on Amazon. And so then it just looked like a bunch of gobbledygook to an English reader. And of course the Amazon search bar doesn't like the word darken star, which is one word, which is the title of the first book. So it will auto-correct it to the dark star and then fail to find it. So I think that the best way to find my books is to go to thousandworld.com, and there are some direct links from there.
Good. And I have an autographed copy of Darkened Star from you when you were home visiting. And this is our second interview, I believe. And that was a great book. And but I'm also interested in the Swedish because series 2, 3, and 4 are not available in English, correct?
That is currently correct. As I said, the goal, the dream, the point of guilty conscience is that I would like to get the rest of that series published in English because it's sort of my magnum opus so far. Like if you want to know about my books, if you want to experience my writing, Adventures in Thousand World is really the series to read. So yeah, signing up to my newsletter is a great way for people to find out when and if more of these books will get published in English. But so far, it's only the first one.
Yes, I understand that. Now, as you know, I do read Swedish novels, and
Yes.
So I would be interested in the Swedish versions. So I'll check on thousandworld.com. Also, I'd love to have you get your newsletter. Now, tell me when you've written stories which have been suggested by parents because their kids like this particular topic, you must have an anthology right there that's building. So someday you're going to be publishing those little stories, right?
Oh my, that question took me off guard. Caught me off guard. I'm not sure. So I do, as you say, like on my website, there's sort of an archive of these fun little stories that I've written based on the requests of young readers who've said like, hey, could you write a story about potato chips or write a story about a moose caught in a tree, or that kind of thing.
Well, that sounds.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say that sounds wonderful. We have less than a minute, so I just wanted to.
Okay.
I want to thank you so much for coming on board again and sharing your stories. And for the listeners, these books are wonderful. You should get them, and your kids will love them. 9 to 12-year-olds, even adults. I enjoyed that Darkened Star, that first book in English. So, tell me, are you still happy to be in Sweden? And when are you coming home?
I am happy to be here. I'm happy to be in the library today working on new books. And I am coming home as soon as I can. I do not know when that is.
Okej, så lycka till ska jag säga. Och
Tack så mycket.
ja, och jag ska tacka dig för idag. Det var härligt. Hej, hej. Hej då.
Hej då.
Hej då. Priscilla Almquist-Olsen, wishing you all the very best. Until next time, be well.